Hello, everyone. This is Fantasy and Frames Mental Health Awareness Series, Episode 3. I'm your host, Zach, and I'm joined today by my wife, Megan, who is also a licensed mental health counselor. Through this series, we will be talking about a specific topic regarding to mental health, about 10 to 15 minutes, and we will be going for an entire 14 episode run through the entire summer. So go ahead, hit that like button, hit subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss any episode that drops every Monday at 9 a.m. Make sure you stay until the end of this episode because we will be discussing a Scott Fish Bowl 13 invite giveaway contest, and we really hope one of you can win that. So I would like to start off with saying we had a lot of positive responses about grounding from episode 2. If you missed it, please go back and watch episode 2. There is a playlist in our channel. So Megan, can you explain why being in the moment is important for mental health?
Of course. If you're not in the present moment, then you have to either be in the past or the future. And when you're in the past, you're thinking about things you wish you did differently. And that type of thinking is associated with depression, anger, and resentment. And on the flip side, when you're in the future, you're thinking about hypotheticals that could happen or things to come that you're not really looking forward to. That type of thinking is associated with fear and anxiety and worry. It's very easy to get overwhelmed when you're juggling the emotions of the past, the present, and the future all at once. There are very few things that can happen in the present moment right here and now that will completely overwhelm you. So I'm not saying you can never think about things that have happened or things to come, but you can not hang on to those things and let them consume you. That's when it becomes problematic.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about when you're thinking in the moment, but you are distracting yourself to avoid dealing with an issue?
So, as I discussed in the previous episode, if you're not grounded in the moment, then those stressors will build up over time and become more problematic. Distracting yourself to avoid dealing with those complicated thoughts, emotions, or confrontations does not solve any of your problems. Since I like to use analogies, imagine that you have a bucket of water. You could fill that bucket up really quickly from a thunderstorm, or it could fill up slowly under a leaky faucet. Once it's full, you cannot physically manage to carry any more water. So now imagine that that water represents your emotions. The longer you carry around a full bucket of emotions, the more fatigued you become. And the smallest triggers can result in an overflow or an outburst of emotions. So when you utilize your coping skills to keep the water or your emotions at a manageable level, then you have more energy to deal with life. Even if a big stressor catches you off guard and comes your way, you're going to have more capacity to hold that without getting overwhelmed and having some sort of outburst.
Okay, so are you saying that we should never allow ourselves to be distracted, even if we are actively engaged in our distractions?
It's all about moderation. Distractions can be useful if you're giving yourself a break to compose yourself or to gather your thoughts about a stressful situation. The goal is to be intentional with your use of distractions. If you minimize the distractions from dealing with problems, then you're less likely to experience your stressors piling up or escalating, as I described in the bucket analogy.
Okay, so sometimes self-care is used as a distraction from life. Is that considered a healthy or an unhealthy distraction?
Self-care is a great way to manage your overall stress levels so your bucket does not get too heavy. Anything can be self-care, and it varies greatly between individuals. If you want to take self-care up a notch, then you should be striving towards what I like to call self-love. Self-love involves prioritizing yourself since you matter and you deserve to be a little bit selfish sometimes since no one else is going to do this for you but you. You have to love yourself to truly be happy. And if you think about it, there's nothing selfish about that at all. You do have to keep in mind that the people around you have their own emotions and values and needs, and you don't want to steamroll them in the process. So there is sometimes a little bit of a compromise that needs to occur. But overall, if you can be present in the moment, without experiencing any guilt or shame for prioritizing yourself, then you will greatly benefit from this healthy distraction of self-love.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I actually want to share a little bit of some personal experience around that. So the first time I went to therapy several years ago, one of the things I struggled with was not really doing anything for myself per se. I was so focused between work, my marriage, my child. There wasn't really any me time because I felt like I was being selfish if I was taking time away from any of those responsibilities. And that's actually what led me into fantasy football. And so it wouldn't shock me if a lot of people listening who are content creators have probably struggled with this type of thinking of am I being selfish by wanting to go record a podcast or write an article or do some research. And I think based on what you're saying and from my experience, you have to find that balance of finding that me time, having that self-care, but then also making sure that you are not actually being selfish by taking too much time away from your other responsibilities. Is that a kind of a good way to summarize what you're talking about in my experience?
Yes, it's all about being self-aware and reading the room, I guess would be a good way to put it.
All right. So do you have any other tips for managing your stress levels?
Okay, well, there is another technique called emotional release, and this consists of finding healthy and appropriate outlets for your emotions. The goal is to process your emotions as soon as they occur. However, if you're at work or out in public, or you're just around people that don't feel safe, and a personal issue arises, it's probably better if you find that healthy distraction until you can get to that safe place or person to release your emotions in a way that will best help you get through whatever that time of your life is. The way in which emotional release can be implemented does vary greatly from person to person.
Can you give us a few examples then?
Sure. There can be physical types of releases, such as working out, going on a walk, really anything that gets you moving. All you need to do is channel those negative emotions into each motion that you make. For social types of releases, you can vent to trusted individuals about your feelings and experiences. There's also creative types of releases. They can vary from painting to crafting, woodworking, designing, organizing, or really anything that involves any sort of innovation. If you really want to challenge yourself, you can even add symbolism to your emotional releases. So symbolism can be as basic as picturing yourself leaving the negative energy with each step that you take away from something. Or it can be as complicated as a dream catcher.
A dream catcher. You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
If you think about it, a dream catcher does nothing for your mental health. It's just some pretty decor. The symbolism behind the dream catcher is the key here. It was designed by parents to give their children a sense of security at bedtime when they were afraid to go to sleep due to having nightmares. So parents would tell their children it catches and traps the bad dreams in the webbing and allows the good dreams to flow down the feathers into their heads. So as a result, these children are going to sleep calmer, thinking the dream catcher is protecting them. But in reality, they're just not using their imaginations to give themselves all these ideas for nightmares. So less nightmares overall. And it's a very healthy, symbolic way of releasing those fears of going to bed because of nightmares and being a good emotional release.
No, that's a great example. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode. So we covered this in under 10 minutes, hopefully in a very digestible way, giving you another coping skill to help you out. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please leave a comment on this video. I am checking it all the time to make sure that we get back to you in a timely manner. Or if you'd rather not be as public, you can always DM me on Twitter and I will keep it anonymous. And I will also obviously have Megan help me answering the questions if it is something that I do not have the ability to do. But I want to make sure you guys are getting out of this series as much as you can. All right. So now I wanted to talk about Scott Fishbowl 13 real quick. So I had to wear the Scott Fishbowl 13 shirt. Make sure you go ahead and get your merchandise. It's a great way to support the charity. But I just want to pull up the directions real quick. We'll keep it really simple. So this is the second week of the giveaway. We talked about it in episode 2. So super simple. Step 1, donate at least $5 to one of the following organizations. You have NAMI, the Faith Fight Finish Foundation, which is Dak Prescott, and then the Hayden Hurst Family Foundation. We made it really simple. If you just look in the show description, there is a link for all 3 of them. It'll take you directly to the donation page. After that, just go ahead and leave a comment on this episode on our YouTube video. And then step 3, subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames channel on YouTube. Great way to make sure you don't miss any of these shows. And then the last step is just send a screenshot as a DM of your donation, as well as you subscribing to this YouTube channel to @FantasyandFrames on Twitter. Super simple. It is important to note, though, the deadline is this Thursday, June 19th at June 16th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. And then we will be announcing the winner on our next episode, episode 4, at 9 a.m. on June 19th. So make sure you get submitted in time. That way you have a chance. And I will be honest, we've had a lot of people submit the first week, and a lot of them got their invites already. So it's awesome. So you do have a great chance of getting in to the Scott Fish Bowl through this if you go ahead and participate in this. So I want to thank Megan for coming on again, sharing a lot of valuable information. I want to thank you all for joining us today, listening, and being involved with this. I hope you got a lot out of it. Topic 4, so next week, we will be covering another coping skill. So it's our 3rd one. It'll be cognitive reframing. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, that's okay. Come watch the episode and we will teach you. And by we, I mean Megan. I'm just here. So again, we appreciate you. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And I like to always finish it with, if you are struggling or having suicidal thoughts, then immediately call or text 988. That is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and it is available 24/7. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week.